All right, welcome to another episode of Unraveling Success. Today, I'm super excited to have Rich Melzer on Unraveling Success. I met Rich in high school, so we're kind of reminiscing about the days of old. But Rich is the CEO of YouthLink. He resides in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and has three boys, Devin, Jameson, and Mason. So you've been at YouthLink for 2.5 years, but previously to that, Rich is a basketball star and has done everything basketball. So professionally, I know that you played for 9 years, a
Mhm.
lot overseas, and then I know you had a couple stints in the NBA as well. And I know UWRF has recognizes you a lot. So
Let's go.
yeah.
Yeah.
In your spare time, I know that Rich loves his job. So that means he loves serving, giving, lifting people up, and loves being a dad, which is actually one of my favorite things about you. And I also happen to know from social that you love to cook. So props to
I
you.
do. I do. Thank you. Yeah.
I
Heck
will
yeah.
just be the one eating the food. Uh,
Thanks for having me, Jeff. It's great to see you.
yeah, I'm so excited that you're joining me today. So let's kick things off. And if you wouldn't mind starting us off with your definition of success.
Yeah. So I've thought about this a lot, and it might sound a little scripted, but for me, I guess I would say success isn't about maybe money or wealth or power as we think of it. For me, success is more about kind of personal growth and that journey of being mindful and centered with myself, or with oneself, right? Knowing who we are, making the right decisions. I have a friend of mine who gave my son and I some really good advice once and just said, do the right thing all the time,
Mhm.
with our lives, with our time, with our gifts. And when you live by that, I think good things tend to happen more regularly, right? You don't have to worry about money or acclaim, kind of like we talked about earlier. That all inevitably comes
Mhm.
when you show up as your best self. So, long-winded version, that's kind of my definition of success.
Yeah, I love it. And one of the things that I've realized as I've spoken with more and more people is so actually, I have not heard one person talk about their definition of success being anything to do with stuff. And even like as much as I love goal setting and having something to reach towards, I can definitely say that I have gotten to a point where I know that that's the stuff, the goal reaching is like you have a quick yay moment, but it's pretty anticlimactic. And really the joy is in like that journey, which is what you're talking about, the personal growth and like expanding to the
Totally,
next level of yourself. So yeah,
completely agree. Absolutely.
yeah, I love it. So let's kind of start. I kind of think it'd be fun to start from when you and I met because I know your story is really powerful, and you there's a lot to that you can share, and there's a lot in any journey to be. We're all going to glean different pieces of that we can learn and take forward in our own lives. So I met you when we were in high school, and I don't know if it was maybe sophomore or junior year.
It was your junior year.
Okay, all right, my
Yep.
junior year. So
It should have been mine too. Yeah, ultimately.
okay, and you moved from Minneapolis,
Yeah.
and I obviously that's a big part of your story because going from a city like Minneapolis to a rural town like River Falls, Wisconsin, is
Wild.
culture shock. I understand that.
Wild.
I'm going to segue really fast here, but I grew up in the country on a gravel road with horses. And after I graduated high school, I don't know if you knew this about me, I went and straight to Los Angeles. And then I went straight to Brazil and lived in the favelas, which are the slums on the hills. So
Sure. The barrio.
I'm sure you have more culture shock than me, but I can understand and relate to culture shock. So
Yeah.
tell,
Real.
tell me a little bit about what that was like for you.
Yeah, thank you for asking, Beth. So, yeah, we met, I think I was 17 when I moved to River Falls with my aunt and uncle and my cousin Terry and Isaac and Olivia, right? I was in Minneapolis at the time. I'm actually at my home base right now at YouthLink in downtown Minneapolis. This is where I grew up, right? And as a young person, I was always involved and I always had family around me that cared about me. I always had, a space to be myself. But around that time before coming to River Falls, I got in a series of troubling events, right? As a young person that just wasn't making the best choices. I grew up in a pretty peculiar upbringing in my home life, right? My dad's from Memphis, Tennessee. My mom's from Bloomington, Minnesota. And growing up in a diverse background with family like that brought some challenges. Anyways, the way I got out to River Falls, I was actually expelled from school my junior year of high school, and I found myself out of school for nearly a year, right, trying to really determine and decide what I was going to do with my life as a young adult. And my cousin Terry, who I'm very close with, and his family had just moved out to River Falls, and they brought their cookie company with them. They relocated out there to start a better life for the kids and my cousins. And on the phone one day, I was talking to my cousin Terry, and I'm like, "Hey, man, like I got to get out of here. Like something, I could feel something bad is looming."
Mm-hmm.
I was involved. I was running the streets. I just wasn't making good choices, as I mentioned. And we kind of conjured up this plan and brought it in front of my aunt Sue and my uncle Ron. Like, hey, can Rich come and live out here? So ultimately, they were, receptive to the idea. They loved me. They knew how close I was with my cousins, and I was really fortunate enough to get, move from Minneapolis and get a second chance, to go back to high school and to get an education and to continue competing in basketball. My aunt and uncle and my family kind of gave me that opportunity. So I tell people all the time, I was one of the lucky ones. There's stories like this that happen all the time, every day here in the Twin Cities, where young adults and particularly young, people of color just are really struggling to get opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that. And when I got out there and, met you and began going to school, the culture shock was wild. I mean, my mom is white, right? My dad's black. So I grew up in a pretty diverse background. I was always comfortable around both sides of my family, but being displaced from Minneapolis and then put inside of a community where I was almost, entirely one of the only people of color there
Mm-hmm.
was a bizarre phenomenon to experience. And at the time, it really, I knew it was kind of my last shot to do well.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew it was kind of one of my last opportunities to get back into school, to do what I knew I was capable of accomplishing that I didn't really get to in the city. But at the time, I was so focused on doing right by my aunt and uncle and making sure that their investment was valued by me and not getting in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really think about it that much until I got older and really realized that was a very challenging um, series of events. And to be able to go there and thrive in that space in some ways has, prepared me for the long haul of my life and being able to handle adversity and being durable and cross communicating and just knowing how to be agile. I owe I owe my family a lot, but it was also the community of River Falls, really welcomed and embraced me as a person that they wanted to see be successful. So that was River Falls was very good to me, Beth. Yeah, as you know.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember when you came, like I there was never a moment where my perception of you was that you were a troublemaker.
Right. Right. Well, I couldn't be. I was on thin ice, man. I'll tell you that. I was lucky to be back into high school and
Yeah,
to get a shot at playing. I never played high school basketball until I moved to River Falls,
that's so cool.
right? And it's such a small community. I remember hearing rumors that, like, and not knocking anybody, but when I moved to River Falls, there were rumors that I spoke like Ebonics and I had to have a translator walk around, like just really small town stuff. Hudson, I think somebody started a rumor there, which is a neighboring city. And ultimately it was fuel, right? I used that fuel to perpetuate, some energy and some drive to say, all right, watch this. And, got
Yeah.
into college and, played high school ball and really
Yeah.
just made the most of that opportunity.
It's I you're that is brilliant because that is I use fuel from naysayers too. In fact, when you and I were talking, the place where I was started as a receptionist with for that first 10 years, the line that I heard for 10 years was, "You're just an order taker." Like that was what I was, and so I'm like, watch me.
And that's okay.
Like,
I use that in college. I use it today. I mean, you're, maybe jumping ahead a little bit, Beth, but I can relate to, you're a woman in business, right?
mhm,
You've been had to overcome some challenges that are very similar to mine, being a person of color in a leadership position, right? Like, I have to run circles around my counterparts sometimes just to get the same nod that they do for coasting,
mhm,
and not my horn or boasting at all, but we have to be very, very sharp
yeah,
most of the time, and
yeah,
it comes with some challenges,
mhm. I think my
but very rewarding too.
yeah, yeah. It's also I feel like the win is probably a lot sweeter too.
Definitely. And you got to find, a lot of people, I think a lot of young people particularly, and adults like us, struggle to find their drive.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always come from a positive place. I remember my freshman year of college, I was working out a lot and I was starting to get kind of good.
Mhm.
And somebody wrote something on a chat line back then. This is like right as Facebook and YouTube was
Yeah.
starting, right? So this is like the fetal stages of the
Mhm.
internet. And somebody wrote, "Oh, Rich Melzer will never accomplish anything. He'll never be a starter. He's going to end up back in Minneapolis selling drugs or being on the street." And that was something I took with me throughout most of my career as a
Mhm.
professional. And I hope they're watching.
Yeah. Me too. So tell me a little bit about if this is your story with what you just shared about your move from Minneapolis to River Falls is the timing of that is interesting for me because once a month in the agency we do professional training and
Sure.
we're using a curriculum by Ryan Leak. I don't know if you know who that is, but I will send you a link to him later.
I
So
love that.
Ryan Leak is out of I believe he's out of Texas.
Mm.
He is a man of color. He is brilliant. One of the things he talked about, this is so funny that you brought this up. So I'm going to tie these things together, but he talked about how growing up, he would have grown up in a similar to like a Minneapolis, right?
Sure.
His parents,
Urban setting.
yeah. So his parents put him across town in a private school.
Mm.
So it was really funny in this training. He said, when he talked about his environment, and I should grab my notes, but he was basically talking about um, conformity, like how your definition of success can conform to your environment. Okay.
Mm.
And so
Totally.
he was talking about how he was always this sticks in my head and this will make you laugh because he's actually a
I love where this is going.
He's like, so I was like FUBU on the bottom and Abercrombie and Fitch on the top.
Mm.
So he was
Mm.
talking about the convergence of the two environments and how the environments defined success and what that looked like in the different environments.
Wild.
And it was, I mean, it was really that was a good session. So what you're talking
I think what
about,
he's referring to is code switching,
yeah,
is what it's tend to be called in the circles I'm in. Yeah.
yeah. But he was
Um,
talking about how he felt like because he was in these two different environments, he didn't have a limited perception of what he could do.
yeah. The ceiling kind of opened up.
Yes.
I feel that. I feel that a lot. And, I I see where he's going. I never mess with no Abercrombie and Fitch. My nickname is Hood Rich. So I've always tried to keep it somewhat authentic, right, to my upbringing. But, you have to adapt, right? The
Mhm.
same candor that takes place with my guys in the street that I grew up with doesn't take place here in the boardroom.
Right.
right? And as a young person, particularly a young person that's multicultural, I got it too. Sometimes I wasn't black enough for my friends and family
Mhm.
from down south because I was light skinned, or
Mhm.
I wasn't. I would never say white enough, but there were spaces I didn't fit in because I was black, because I am an African American,
Mhm.
and it develops a unique muscle and aptitude that I don't think a lot of people have the privilege of experiencing sometimes. And we all grow up in our nooks,
Yeah.
in our communities, in our little villages, and until we get out of them and experience different communities, different people, different ethnicities,
Mhm.
different religions, right? We're kind of stuck in those spaces.
Yeah.
So I guess I've been, and it wasn't anything by design that I can take credit for, but I was fortunate enough to be put in places where I was uncomfortable, where
Mhm.
I wasn't familiar, because we all know most of our wins come from our losses,
Yeah.
right? And not that it was a loss, but it was a huge challenge. It was a huge learning curve that often was not fun. And sometimes, Beth, to be honest, very ugly. There were things that took place in River Falls a lot of people don't know about, that my family and I just kind of kept close to us and used it as a tool for growth. But I totally identify with what he's saying. Like, you have to be able to code switch in some spaces and have a dialogue that's consistent for the audience, I guess.
Do you feel, I mean, I look at, you've lived in overseas in a lot of different countries. On top
Oh
of,
yeah.
probably it felt like Minneapolis and River Falls were two different countries as well. Um,
Hmm.
so that being said, with your description of kind of feeling torn between two different worlds, sometimes do you feel like, given all of like the recipe of that, right, almost turns
Sure.
into a little bit of a superpower for you?
Well, that's I don't know if I'd say it that way, but I appreciate that. I appreciate that sentiment. But I do, right? So I had a couple cups of coffee with some NBA teams early on in my career after college. And then Coach Popovich from the Spurs sent me to France, where Tony Parker's from, and said, "Go to France. They'll take care of you. You'll find your niche there. See what happens. We'll bring you back." So I went to France, and I quickly learned that these European teams, they see a lot of Americans like me come and go throughout the years,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
You're this kind of medium, lower tiered NBA player. You go overseas, and you're instantly a top tier player. But what happens is it's very easy to alienate yourself and
Mhm.
become part of this kind of cliche. And I never wanted to be that. So what I did was I started to teach myself languages when I'd go to different countries.
Mhm.
So when I went to France, I would teach myself French. When I went to Israel, I would teach myself Hebrew, and I would do it phonetically. So, it was a great way to build rapport with my coaches.
Mhm.
It was a great way to build rapport with my teammates. And I think being in River Falls kind of maybe gave me a lens to really understand the urgency and the sense of community,
Mhm.
right? Building a community and saying, "Hey, I'm here to stay. I want to be successful here. I want to contribute." Those were things and tools I got from River Falls and that experience, I guess. And I've never thought about that or said it out loud, but definitely played a part in that pathway.
Yeah. So, I know that you wrote down some of the places that you played, and it was Germany, France, Israel, Italy, Spain, Australia, New Zealand, and the Dominican Republic. Do you have a favorite? Is there one that sticks out as extra special?
A couple, but I really loved Israel. I really, really loved and identified with Israel. And let me say, I loved all the experiences I had. I was very fortunate to play in really hospitable places. There was a few years there where I would go from Israel to Germany, and then the next year I'd go to Israel. The next year I'd go to
Mhm.
Germany. I
Okay.
bounced back and forth between these two vastly different worlds.
Hmm.
Uh, and it was just a really meaningful experience. I loved Israel. The first time I went there, I was younger. I was single. Right, the nightlife is crazy. They love Americans. The food is great. The second time I went there, I was actually married and with my kids and had a family, and it was just as good, probably more meaningful
Hmm.
then. But I'd say Israel. Australia is great. I got love for everywhere I've been. Dominican Republic, shout out to San Carlos and the barrio. Got
Mhm.
family there. I mean, really, really had a enjoyable experience traveling the world.
What about Israel? Like, I mean, just the whole experience, the hospitality of the community, the obviously the
Yeah,
sounds was amazing. That's very cool. I love
it's tropical, right? I mean,
that.
what the way that and I don't think people really consider Israel necessarily the Middle East, but what's portrayed on television isn't indicative of what I saw in my time there,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah,
it's a place where you can leave your children out until 12, 1 in the morning without any worries of any sort of violence or activity that parents don't want to happen, right? There's
Mhm.
gang violence. I mean, it's just a safe space. The Mediterranean's right there. Tel Aviv is fantastic. Shout out to Israel. Shout out to Holon and Tel Aviv. I have a lot of love for that space.
Yeah. So when you finished playing basketball, what was your? How did you decide to exit? Because you were, I mean, that was what 9 years of your life, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's
what
crazy.
prompted that next chapter, and how did that work itself out?
So I've always had a desire to serve and give back. Right. I came up as a maybe somewhat of a troubled youth with a really difficult upbringing, but I had people around me that were stewards of my success and stewards of my future, and I wanted to pay that forward. So as a professional athlete, there's a lot of engagements and public speaking opportunities and services that we provide. Right, we go to schools,
Mm-hmm.
um, we go to malls and talk to young people. I mean, it's endless, but I really gravitated to those experiences and learnings as a professional.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got older, maybe year 8 or 9, I started to think about, I had some good veterans around me that would tell me, start thinking about the long game, start thinking about how you want to use basketball as maybe, a automobile or a vehicle, to get you where you want to be. And I was in France. I was in maybe Boulogne-sur-Mer, and a kid dunked on me in practice one day. A young kid dunked on me. And I don't get dunked on very often. I'm going to just say that for the record. But when it happened, I wasn't pissed off. I wasn't angry. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't upset. We went in the locker room and my teammates were clowning me and talking crazy, and it didn't faze me at all. And that's kind of when I knew
Yeah.
maybe I've lost my competitive drive here, and maybe I'm burnt out. So I retired right then. I started up my own. I started up my own private nonprofit called the Balance Foundation, and I did exactly that. I started to learn and develop my own muscle in, serving young people and serving the community. And after that, I ended up at Lifetime Fitness, really learning the ins and out of the business. I started a basketball program there with some that was already going with some friends of mine, and quickly just had an app for operations. And then from there, I transitioned to starting a sports program with the YMCA of the North here in the Twin Cities. And, 6, 7 years later, here I am at YouthLink as the CEO, still working alongside of young people.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah.
I feel like your journey teed you up to be in the seat that you're in right now. Um,
Agreed.
yeah, it's almost like
Agreed.
it
I've
just
been groomed for
it's like
this.
the perfect path. So talk to me a little bit about YouthLink. What do you do? What's your mission? Who do you serve? Maybe what are ways that people can help YouthLink and get involved with what you're doing?
Yeah. So YouthLink's been around for almost half a century. We're right in the heart of downtown Minneapolis. And this is a center that serves young people that are experiencing homelessness between mainly the ages of 16 to 24.
Mhm.
Behind me here is our drop-in center where young people can come during the day, Monday through Friday, and really get their basic needs met. Right? They can come here and eat. They can come here and sleep. They can come here and eat and nourish themselves in our healthy nutrition kitchen.
Mhm.
as they're doing all that and, getting clothes and maybe even some food from our pantry, there's case managers here that will help identify where they've been so that they can support them on their pathway towards long-term sustainable housing, right? So our real core goal is to get not only young people off the street, but to get them into housing
Mhm.
and to get them long-term sustainable shelter that they can call their own. We have a ton of mental health resources here. I think what is really beautiful about working in this space is that everybody that's going to watch this show, everybody that we encounter and come across has had people in their families that have struggled with something,
Yeah.
whether it's addiction, whether it's mental health. And this place really nurtures, loves, and serves those people that need it. And that's kind of what we're a part of. Our model here works, right? We have several respected studies from the University of Minnesota, et cetera, and countless testimonials that say when people come to YouthLink, they're much better off than they were prior, right?
Mhm.
We have tons of really great partners and resources. Our board is really active in supporting us. And if people want to support YouthLink, we're online, YouthLink MN as in Minnesota.org.
Mhm.
You know, we need support. I mean, there's a lot of dark thoughts and connotations around youth homelessness when in fact what we do here there's a lot of light coming from this place.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know it coming into this building that we're serving young people experiencing homelessness. This feels like a well-being center, some sort of benevolent institution.
Mhm.
And I think if people start to probe and dig into what we do here, it'd really pull on some heartstrings.
Yeah. I know for me, that's actually been one of my biggest. I'm always, the one rooting for the underdog or, wanting to like help or lift up if I can. That's actually one of the biggest things I've
Yeah.
found enjoyment and even just in developing my team is watching them
Right.
grow and
It's
expand
good.
and flourish. But
Yeah,
yours is like on a whole different level because you can't grow and expand and flourish unless you have your basics in order, which is food and a safe place to live. You can't worry about the other stuff until you got your fundamentals down.
yeah, very true, very true. I experienced housing instability just before coming to River Falls,
Mm-hmm.
and this place was here, and I never knew about it. Even when the selection committee from YouthLink came to me about the opportunity to come and lead here, my first question was, what's YouthLink? I'd never heard of it, and it's been doing this meaningful work for a long time, and I'm just super grateful to be here. But
Yeah.
our youth visits are up. I've been here about 2 years and some change.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, our whole team is new, but youth visits to YouthLink are up
Okay.
106%,
Mm-hmm. It's
and
like
we're serving
things where
much
you're like
more.
yay and then boo. Like I used to run. Actually, we did a lot of work in Minneapolis, but I used to run a pit bull and Rottweiler rescue for many years, and
Right, you have a passion for pits. That's right.
I do. Yep. Good. I have mine
I
now.
remember that.
Yeah. And it was always like, oh, we're growing. We have 35 for 40 dogs in the program. And then it'd be like, yay. And then you're like, oh, I wish we didn't have to have us. I wish I didn't need to. You know what I mean? Like you wish
Yeah,
that it's like amazing to have the resource and it's invaluable. And then you wish that they didn't have to need it, you know?
totally. Well, there's another really peculiar nuance that we've just kind of unraveled too. There's this Wilder study that stated, youth homelessness isn't necessarily on the rise in some respects,
Mhm.
right? But the number of visits that we see here the last couple of years is by 106%, which means
Yes.
we found a really unique remedy and platform
Mhm.
that the young people are enjoying and benefiting
Yeah.
from. And word of mouth is huge. If a young person goes to a place and they're not treated well or they're not treated fairly,
Yeah.
they're going to throw them under the bus. And fortunately, we have a team and a group of leaders, staff, case managers here. We're all speaking the same languages. There's a ton of synergy. Everything that we do in every engagement, from the administrative office to the boardroom to the actual service when the people come in, starts with love, right? And I think as we talk about success in business, it's language that needs to be peppered into
Mm,
business and functions like that more frequently. And
yeah.
I'm happy to say I think we've found a way here in some respects.
Yeah. It's awesome. Good job. You should be very proud.
We have a lot of help.
Yeah. Many hands make light work. And I mean, the success of many people working together, and it's
It
never,
takes a village.
yeah,
It takes a village.
so true. So one of the things that we talked about that we wanted, or that we had identified we wanted to collaborate or talk on a little bit, was um, what are some ways that, how to overcome adversity and challenges? Like, what are some tactics? And I think, you have in your own personal life had to, adapt certain, I'm sure, hone certain skills or adapt certain behaviors to overcome. And then also the youth that you're working with. That has to be something that you are seeing, frequently. What would you say some of those keys are?
You know, I tell my, I don't know, I guess for a lot of these young people, it's applicable for everyone, but a lot of the young people that come in here don't have homes, and
Mm,
they've been displaced in some respects, or they're destination kids from different states that have run away for whatever reasons. But I think one of the underlying messages that I try to let people know is that it's supposed to be hard,
mm-hmm,
right? Anything that is worth having is worth working for. We've all heard that. But sometimes to get to a space that feels that gives us skin in the game,
mm-hmm,
where we can really be our best selves, comes from hardship.
mm-hmm,
Uh, whether you grow up in rural River Falls or the Twin Cities or urban America, I think for some periods of our lives, it's supposed to be hard. And the trick is to overcome it however you have to. Whatever you have to do to get past those challenges, to achieve whatever goal you're trying to accomplish. And I know that's vague, but
mm-hmm.
it wouldn't be any if it wouldn't be any fun if the pathway was easy. I don't think it's supposed to be challenging.
Yep.
You're supposed to be able to really overcome obstacles and things to get where you want to be in life. And age, once you become a young adult, any adult that's worth a damn will tell you, yeah, it's the challenges that you overcome are probably the most rewarding.
I totally agree. So the key would be embrace the hard.
Embrace it.
Embrace the
Absolutely. Well put.
yeah, yeah.
Well put.
Well, yes. All right. Well, Rich, thank you for being with me today and connecting. It was I learned a lot. I never actually knew why you ended up in River Falls, and now I do. Um,
Yeah.
and so for more information on Rich, and if you are interested in learning more about YouthLink, you can check our show notes. All the contact information will be there.